Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take up the unmanned aerial vehicles, that is the weapon of future. Now, the advancement of technology has led to the application of science in various fields, including weapons technology. This means mechanics playing more crucial role than human intervention, and one such example is unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs. After the arrival of UAVs, the battlefield has never been the same. While attackers are exploring the combat capabilities of this new weapon, the defenders are busy harnessing new technologies to tackle the threat from UAVs. India's three armed services have been operating UAVs for almost 2 decades now, with several versions procured and deployed from time to time, including Searcher, Heron, Lakshya, etc. Recently, Indian Army has given its go-ahead for supply of another mini unmanned aerial system, Spylite. Now, this new mini UAV will act as eyes in the sky for Army in border areas, which is termed as very crucial aspect. Army has also issued requests for information for remotely piloted aircraft system that can operate at a height of above 18,000 feet and mechanism to control it beyond the line of sight. In addition to this, the Rustom 2 UAV, which is being developed by the DRDO, is also expected to be delivered to the armed forces by 2020. The medium-altitude UAV Rustom can fly at over 22,000 feet and has an approximate flight time of 20 hours. So what are UAVs? How will it augment the strength of Indian armed forces? And what will be its impact? And several other aspects. For more on this, we have with us a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with Mr. Ravi Kumar Gupta, former Director Public Interface of DRDO. Then we have with us Lieutenant General V.K. Saxena, retired Distinguished Fellow of VIF, and we also have with us retired Group Captain Ajay Lele, the Senior Fellow from IDSA. Welcome all of you to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, General Saxena, to try and understand this entire concept of unmanned aerial vehicles. In brief, if you could explain to our viewers what exactly is a UAV.
Unmanned aerial vehicles or UAV is actually nothing short of a revolution. It has got two dimensions. A dimension for the attackers and a dimension for the defenders. For the attackers, it is a tool which has got a lot of combat virtues. For example, a vehicle like a UAV does not have crew fatigue. It has long endurance. It can carry weapon systems on board which can give a run for the money for the combat aircraft. It can do a whole spectrum of tasks in terms of reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, target acquisition, electro-optical reconnaissance. It can do search in NBC environment. It has no restrictions on the terrain, no restrictions on the environment, and also has tremendous endurance and speed. In the terms of the defenders, it is a nightmare. Why it is a nightmare? It is a nightmare because to bring down a UAV is a very challenging task. Most of the UAVs are very small and they do not have much radar cross-section area. They are not painted very well on the radar. Very difficult to detect a small UAV. And once it is difficult to detect, it is difficult to engage. Second big problem with the attack defenders is you have to match the cost of the kill with the cost of the target. Like a UAV is a very target which is not very costly. There is no point launching a UAV, launching a millions of dollars of missiles or such like weapon systems on UAV or a few $1,000s. Therefore, the trend which is catching up or the defender's problem is to find low cost solution to kill low cost UAVs.
Okay.
For that, you require systems like laser. You require systems like radio frequency jamming, electronic jamming, electronic warfare. In short, the soft kill measures.
Okay.
Or such measures of kinetic which are low cost.
So there are both aspects as far as UAV is concerned, both from the attacker's point of view.
It is the attacker's delight and defender's nightmare.
Attacker's delight and defender's nightmare, quite aptly summed up by General Saxena there. Let me bring in Group Captain Lele here. If you look at Indian armed forces, then they've been using these UAVs for almost 2 decades now. We have had indigenous versions like Nishant, Laksha, and the one which is now being developed by the DRDO, Rustom 2, and then we have procured others from other nations as well, be it Heron or several others which we are talking about right now. One is, to what extent have they been used so far, and how do we want to move ahead as far as utilization of UAVs is concerned for our armed forces?
I think as far as UAVs and the entire technology of UAVs is concerned, it could be considered as a force multiplier in today's environment at least. So we can see a lot of Hollywood movies where UAVs are taking over the entire warfare, the entire gamut of warfare. That has not happened, and to my mind it's unlikely to happen in near future, because UAVs also are in a process of learning. We started using UAVs for the purposes of what we call commonly as ISR purposes, basically for reconnaissance purposes, to gather intelligence, gather information about your own positions, about enemy positions, so on and so forth. Then subsequently the UAVs mature into various zones. One zone could be a UAV which you can use in a killer mode, sort of a suicide UAV, where what we call very commonly as a suppression of an enemy air defense, where the SEAD missions are undertaken, where you go and attack a radar of a enemy. In that case, what happens is that the UAV goes, ensures that there is a radar, first identifies the radar and kills itself on the radar to entirely destroy the system. Then there are UAVs which could be used in an attack mode. We call them as a UCAVs, basically the combat vehicles. The combat vehicles also come into various categories. Right now, even certain amount of experimentation is on whether you can have some sort of a jet fighter sort of a combat vehicle, which will be an unmanned UAV. So like General Sir was saying very succinctly, that as far as UAV is concerned, the basic advantage is the reach and the saving part of it. Because when you lose an aircraft, you don't only lose an aircraft, you use a pilot, and that's most important thing, and we would never like to lose a pilot in that sense. So when you lose a UAV, only you lose say around $1,000 or $2,000. So from that point of view, UAV gives you a very major advantage to address the challenges which are so difficult for the manned missions to undertake to start with, or otherwise they are not worth sending a manned mission because it costs so much.
Okay, so it has its own advantages as well as far as the technological aspect is concerned and the cost aspect is concerned. Let's now look at the indigenous aspect of the UAVs. Let's bring in Mr. V. Prakash Gupta. There have been indigenously built UAVs, be it Nishant, be it Laksha. Now we are moving ahead with Rustom 2. There's been Rustom 1 as well. How would you describe the journey of UAVs as far as indigenization is concerned, making them in India is concerned?
When we started working in the area of unmanned aerial vehicles, we had to start from a very scratch, from developing each and every technology from the basic fundamentals. Because as you are aware, that right since 80s, rather 70s, 80s, and then in beyond 90s, there were a lot of restrictions and nothing was available from the other countries.
In terms of technology?
In terms of technologies, in terms of even systems also. Now, later on, some people started giving systems, but those technologies which go into an UAV, they were not at all available. So we developed everything from ab initio. As a result, today we have mastery over all the techniques which technologies which go into a UAV. So, for example, we have got the waypoint navigation system, wherein you feed in the points where the UAV will be going, and then it comes back. Then you have a completely autonomous flying, where the onboard computer decides that where to go for accomplishing the mission. Similarly, you have got the automated landing and automated takeoff versions, which we have demonstrated very well in case of Rustom 1 and Rustom 2. Then we have got the host of payloads, which are highly advanced payloads which can be integrated, and that experience we have gained and demonstrated both in case of Nishant and then Rustom 1 and then now Rustom 2. Whatever best possible payloads can be there. For example, we have got SATCOM, communicating with the, so once you are beyond the line of sight, the SATCOM takes over.
Okay.
So you are constantly in touch with the ground systems through the satellite. Then we have got ELINT, the electronic electronic and command systems, which are for electronic intelligence and communication intelligence.
Okay.
So those sensors are integrated into this Rustom 2. Then we have got electro-optic systems, like cameras and the infrared systems, which can give you a complete picture of the battlefield scenario. So all these technologies we have developed indigenously, including the payloads, which are either fully developed or partly developing to meeting the specific requirements put forward by the users.
So you mean to say that Rustom 2 is going to be a very useful package
Very
in
useful
itself
package, yeah.
for the armed forces. Let's take in General Saxena's view on this. General Saxena, if you look at the way the UAV technology has developed over the years, as Mr. Gupta was pointing out, from ab initio to now mastering all aspects of the technology. If we look at Rustom 2, which is to be delivered by 2020 as per the DRDO, then what is it that we are expecting from Rustom 2 and how will it be useful for our armed forces?
Sir, Rustom 2, as Mr. Gupta brought out, is actually an evolution which has taken place over a period of time. Our journey of Rustom 2 has not started today. Our journey of Rustom 2 actually started in 2009, when the first crash of Rustom 1 took place and there was technology which was to be developed in-house. From there on, 14 flights took place between 2009 and 2011 for put Rustom 1 on board. It was just a bird of 95 kg payload. Now we developed from there into Rustom 2 over a period of time, and you are well aware that Rustom 2 has had a flight on 25th February 2018, which is a successful flight. Now what is it that Rustom 2 brings to us? Let us understand that. First of all, Rustom 2 is a design which has evolved over a period of time, like I told you. Second is, the type of material which has been used in Rustom 2 vehicle is a composite material, which is very radar non-responsive and difficult for the radars to catch it on because of its low RCS. Second point about Rustom 2 is its aspect ratio, the ratio between the wing length and the wing chord. It has got a high aspect ratio, which means what? Which means during takeoff, during landing, during climb and during cruise flight, its performance is going to be very good, which they have proven it once or twice. Another very important point to note in Rustom 2 that this is the first aircraft of Rustom variety and the DRDO variety which has taken the authorization and certification from CAMILAC, that is Center for Military Airworthiness and Certification, called CAMILAC. And the second is DGAQA, Director General Aeronautical Quality Assurance. So it has got that certification of both of them. Then as regards Mr. Gupta was talking about the payload. The payload of this Rustom 2 has got a very varied payload. It has got medium range electro-optical payload. It has got long range electro-optical payload. It has got a laser designator. Thereafter, along with the laser designator, it has got ELINT, that is electronic intelligence, communication intelligence and image intelligence payloads, all three. Then capability to integrate a SAR, synthetic aperture radar, on board. It has also got a capability for maritime surveillance, the packages there which can be put on board. So what I am trying to bring out is that this Rustom 2 evolved design is also got has got a capability to put a weapon package on board. So tomorrow it can become a self-defending UCAV, Rustom 2. So Rustom 2 brings a lot of good features to us in this aircraft.
Okay, so Rustom 2 is definitely one package which, as both of you explained, is something to look out for and watch out for when it is delivered to the armed forces. Let's bring in Captain Lele again here. Captain Lele, two aspects of UAVs are, and you pointed out in your earlier answer as well. One is the armed version and the unarmed version. Now, obviously, the technology, the use of this technology started with the unarmed version for reconnaissance, to try and gather intelligence as well. But these are the days when the focus is on armed version. So, in terms of armed version, one, where do we stand in terms of our indigenous technology? And two, we have been trying a lot to try, and get hold of armed UAVs as well. So what exactly is the benefit for that, and where are we right now?
As far as armed UAVs are concerned, there is a news that we will be taking it from Israel. We are trying from 2015 onwards, and recently Prime Minister, I think in month of July, had gone to Israel, and there were some fruitful talks about it. So at least as far as the media reports are concerned, we might get 10 birds from that
Heron TP.
Heron TP. So that is one aspect of it. As far as India's indigenous development of a technology is concerned, it's a very interesting growth in the development of a technology which has happened. And if you really look at the entire technology development of Rustom also, it's not only DRDO which is involved into it. You got a HAL which is involved into it. You got your Bharat Electronics which is involved into it. So there is a foolproof package as far as India's public sector organizations which are dealing in these high cost weapons as well as communication equipments. So right now what remains is that to marry a weapon with a platform. I think that is going to be the major challenge for DRDO in coming days. Until and unless you don't successfully marry a weapon with a platform, then you can't really bring it in an operational stage. So that is going to be the challenge. But otherwise, I think our going is great because we did it indigenously. That is most important thing. Then there is a private industry also which has been involved into it. You got industries which are giving you good amount of information about certain amount of testing facilities and few other facilities also. So when somebody is talking of materials, somebody is talking of other equipments on board, then there are certain aspects which are known as a situational awareness, where you are going to use sensors which are basically electro-optical as well as IR sensors also which are involved into it. So all these developments have been taking place, but I think as far as armed development or armed UAV is concerned, it will take certain more amount of a time. But in the meantime, we will fill the gap by exporting it from countries like Israel.
Okay, you spoke about public sector companies and their involvement as well, but in terms of unarmed, sector or unarmed category of UAVs, the private sector companies have also played a very important part. In fact, that can be seen in the recent order which has been given by the army, the Spylite which has been, ordered by the army. So that is also a joint venture of an Indian company and an Israeli company as well. How does that work in terms of private sector, Captain Lele? What is its role out here and to what extent?
You see, as far as private sector is concerned, they are not into the major systems. They are basically giving you all the peripheries which are required. So if you really look at India's missile development program or even a development of a space systems also, you got a lot of private agencies which are working together. So almost to the tune of 500 plus factories which are working together, and they are giving all sort of a infrastructure which is essentially required for the development of a particular weapon system or a platform. So from that point of view, I think as far as private industry is concerned, their contribution is, as compared to other sectors, strategic sectors I can say, is slightly bit more into a UAV sector also, because the technology, in a sense, you are not involving a human into that. So a technology development also is not that critically difficult. So private sector is making good amount of investments, and one must understand that there is a huge market which is going to come up for the UAVs. When you look at countries like China, when you look at countries like USA, they are looking at a very major market. So I think private sector will have a role, and that role is going to get increased in coming days.
Okay, let's now take in Mr. Gupta on this. Mr. Gupta, the private sector role played by private sector and the public sector as well. Do you think there needs to be a blend here as well, as we have been speaking about other aspects of weaponry that both will have to go hand in hand? The same scenario exists here as well, and it doesn't look that difficult as far as this particular sector is concerned, the UAV.
Definitely, because see, ultimately, if you look at the global situation, whatever arms we are importing or platforms which we are importing, they are all coming from their private sectors. And unfortunately, for a long time, we somehow, our policymakers didn't allow the private sector to come up into the weapon systems. But today, these things have changed. Now, nevertheless, as far as the peripherals are concerned, the subsystems and components are concerned, DRDO has been having a lot of collaboration right from the 80s and 90s. As a result, today we have a direct collaboration with more than 1,000 private sector industries, which include not only the DPSUs, but the large sectors, the medium and small sectors companies. So a lot number of the small components for the missiles, for our LC aircraft, for the MBT Arjun, and a host of other systems, they are coming from private companies.
Okay.
Now a time has come when let them also become an integrator.
Okay. So the amalgamation or integration of private sector and public sector energies will definitely result in a lot more good results.
And I have full confidence that our private sector has matured to that level that they can play the role of an integrator. So that's a very important aspect.
Okay, let's bring in General Saxena, and General Saxena on a different aspect now that we are nearing to the close of the show. We would like to understand that to what extent will the presence of the UAVs are crucial for Indian armed forces specifically, and what kind of role to be played by these UAVs is expected in today's scenario. Obviously, it started with reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. It is now moving onwards to having armed UAVs as well. But what specific roles are we looking at when we talk about Indian Army, Indian Air Force, or Indian Navy as well?
Sir, when you're talking before that, can I make a point on the Rustom 2 you were talking
please.
about? This Rustom 2 has got one more important thing is called the PADP model. What is that? Earlier, what used to happen? The AD used to design the UAVs, and it used to be designed agencies separate, keep on going, prototypes, and thereafter comes the production agency, lot of time and cost overrun. For in Rustom 2, the PADP model is production agency is also a design partner. As Lele just brought out, the BEL, the HAL, the DRDO, right from the beginning in Rustom 2 were putting their hands together from the design feature itself. That is why you find that this sort of amalgamation is taking place. Similar thing, I have been personally involved in a lot of UAV seminars, and I have seen the startups. You talk of Alpha Design today, you talk of Tata's, L&T, Aurora Aerospace, Cadet Model, I can keep on naming MKU. They are coming up in a big way in making UAV. The BIS research report has talked of the UAV, which is today's market in 2021 is $885.7 million US dollars going to be our market.
Okay.
So that is what is one aspect. Second is when you're looking at UAV for Indian armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, that 2-3 different types of roles. One is called the STAR role, the standard role of intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, carrying out reconnaissance, as also reconnaissance based on electro-optical, reconnaissance based on radio frequency, reconnaissance, electronic reconnaissance, etc. Thereafter, comes the combat role. The combat role is called the hunter-killer mission. You have all heard of the AFPAC war, that how a combined UAV effort with an armed UAV can make a difference in the battlefield. And today, what is the new concept which is coming up is called MUMT. What is MUMT is manned and unmanned teaming. In this concept, the combat aircraft along with a non-manned platform are being put together. Why? The pilot's intelligence, his grit, his decision-making capability, his tolerance for ambiguity, and his quick thinking mind to change a decision is being combined with dull, dangerous and dirty machines called the UAVs, which has got endurance, which has got weapon carrying capability, and how the two are combined, it is called levels of operability. Today we are operating at a level of operability of 4 and 5, which means the combat pilot on board the combat aircraft is also not only controlling just the sensors on board the UAV, it is controlling the weapons on board the UAV, in which he can direct the weapon onto a side. A big ethical debate is going on in the world today. Are we ready to allow machine over man? Can a UAV be given a chance to take on a hit on its own, strike on its own, and restrike on its own after the first one has got missed out? The vehement argument today is that man in the loop is a must. We are not yet ready, though the ethical debate is on.
Okay, let's take Captain Lele on this aspect. Very interesting one brought out by General here, that this debate. Can we give that much power to the machine over the man, or the MUMT formation is something which ultimately everybody will be looking for?
I think if you really look at the debate, the scientific community particularly, Stephen Hawking or your SpaceX chief also, all these people have come out against artificial intelligence, which is supposed to be the DNA of any UAV. So from that point of view, people are continuously thinking that how can you allow a machine to take a decision to kill a man? So there are a lot of legal issues, there are a lot of moral issues, ethical issues also are there. The issues which are related with basically legal aspects which are done by International Red Cross organization. They are looking at the laws of IHL over here. So there is a debate on what we call commonly as a lethal autonomous weapon systems. So the UAVs, when they are totally in autonomous mode, they belong to the category of laws. Other interesting aspect of a UAV at closing, which I would like to tell, is about a swarm UAVs. Now the concept is coming up that you will have a main aircraft which is which is being piloted by human beings, and there will be a swarm of around 100 UAVs along with him. So even if you lose around 50 UAVs from that, still you got other 50 UAVs available with you, and all these UAVs can interact with each other. So it's a very interesting concept which is emerging. Particularly China is making interesting investments into it. So I think as far as UAV power is concerned, or a future of a UAV warfare is concerned, more than Israel or US, it is China which needs to be watched, and India needs to watch it very carefully.
Okay. 5th January 2018 is a very important date. As Ajay just brought out, the first swarm attack, documented swarm attack has taken place of 21 swarms attacking the Western Syria, the Russian air base. And the first swarm attack, it has already become a reality in which a large number of swarms. The swarms are a graded pattern of UAVs which come like an incest. Even if you take out 1 swarm, 2 swarm, 10 swarms, 10 of the UAV, the other graded pattern will like to take over. Like if they put a swarm here in which they give the default surveillance pattern.
Okay. So clearly, as our guests are pointing out, that while there might be ongoing debate as far as the ethical and moral aspects of putting a machine over man is concerned, but the technology as far as UAVs are concerned is making progress with leaps and bounds, and there are several aspects which are being revealed with each passing day. We will have to wait and watch as to what is next as far as the era of UAVs is concerned. We'll come back again next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajaspa Television.